This is going to be a long one. Hello everyone, it's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? Happy Saturday. I feel like I've been saying this a lot where I have to do a caveat that if you're new to the channel, I don't do this on Saturdays. I generally do a thing called Bad Movies in a Beat, the series on my channel where I talk about bad movies while putting my makeup on. But again, I'm not putting my makeup on. I have a reason this time, okay? I have several reasons this time. And we're not talking about a bad movie. We're talking about Love is Blind, okay? And sure, I could have talked about a bad movie, but I spent literally hours, days, I think actually, making notes for the first 7 episodes of Love is Blind season 3. I am obsessed. I've been going around evangelizing Love is Blind season 3 because it's a mess and I need everyone to watch it so I can talk to people about it. Cause like, girl, because of the sheer volume of things I'm gonna have to talk about, I'm going through 7 episodes of a show that's chaotic each time. I figured let's not make this like more challenging on me right now filming and the editing process. Let's make it a mukbang situation. So I have pasta and grilled chicken, my wine, our braces, and we're gonna talk about Love is Blind. I also have dessert, which I'm really excited about. One of these pumpkin muffins from Starbucks. But yeah, I have a lot to talk about. Didn't feel like doing too many things at the same time. Also, if you haven't noticed, I got lash extensions. This is my first time having them. I don't know how I feel about it. I hated the process of getting them on. I felt like a corpse. And also, I got a nose piercing, which is the reason why I don't really want to put too much on my face right now. At least for this week, I like it. I feel like I was always meant to be a nose ring girl. Today's video was not planned. I wasn't planning on uploading this week either. Like I said, I had a little space in my schedule. I was like, ooh, I could go to sleep. But because Love is Blind was so chaotic, I had to talk to somebody about it because people ain't getting there quick enough, for my opinion. Like, y'all need to watch the show. Sure, you got day jobs. Sure, you got kids to raise. But Love is Blind is on. Come on. I've discovered recently that one of the cons of being rich auntie in training is that everybody else has stuff to do and they can't just drop everything and watch Love is Blind. So that's why I've brought this over to you guys. Like I was saying, I wasn't planning on doing a video on this. I was actually gonna take another week off. Or if I was gonna do a video, I was gonna do a horror movie because it is spooky season after all. But then I realized, what exactly is more spooky than human intimacy? Woo! While watching this season, I came to the realization that I may be emotionally unavailable. And then I tweeted that. And everybody was like, bitch, you didn't know? And I'm like, hello? I was like, what did I do or say that sounds like I'm emotionally unavailable? And people were like, it's just the vibe. So if y'all can quote me, I need evidence. I need evidence. What have I said that says I'm emotionally unavailable? I don't think I'm emotionally unavailable. I think I'm unimpressed. And there is a difference. Anyway, the new season of Love is Blind is out. Season 3. And I'm an unapologetic Love is Blind stan. I've been watching it since the first season, which was in 2020, I think. Unfortunately, up until now, I haven't had the chance of talking about any of the seasons just because time slips so fast. The seasons go by and in real time, I don't have the time to sit there and do each episode. So I've always passed some of the like great Love is Blind moments here on my channel. But this time they're uploading episodes like 3 at a time or so. Last week they did 4 episodes. This week was 3. So I'm gonna do a video about those first 7 episodes and then I'll come back in maybe 2 weeks or so when they have the rest of the episodes out because again, the show is a mess. So if you've never heard of Love is Blind, it's a reality show / social experiment, executively produced, if I'm not mistaken, by the Lachey's. They host it of sorts, but they never are on screen. They're literally there to just like punctuate shifts in the living dynamic of the people. And basically the entire premise of the show is that you put a bunch of people, single people, in a pod and they talk to dates without ever seeing them. And then they propose. They get engaged. And the first season I watched it, I was like, that can't be real. And they're dead ass. They're whole ass serious. They're still married. That's basically the entire premise. You get engaged to a person that you've never seen. And then you meet them. You see them for the first time. Live together for like 3 weeks or so. And at the wedding, you incredibly dramatically say, I do or I don't. You decide whether or not you want to get married right there. And they're like actually married. Wild. Like I said, I've been obsessed with this show since it came out because the premise is just hilarious to me, just wild. They were doing casting in Detroit, for those of you that don't know, I'm in Michigan, and people were like, Kendall, go on it, go on it. I would rather grate my ass on a box grater. So we're at season 3. We kind of know the premise. We kind of know what type of people are attracted to a show premise like this. Let me just say, the men in this season, remarkably bad. Up until this point, we've maybe had 1 or 2 people who are like, ugh, and maybe 1 woman who's like, ugh. This season, the men are bad. Batshit trash. Like awful. There's only 2 of them that are decent people. And of those 2, only 1 is like, wow, he seems like a genuinely amazing person. Cause like, damn, only one guy. Like there's 1 other guy who seems nice enough. Like the spectrum of how good and how bad these people are is so extreme. It's really jarring. So while we're here, let's introduce the notable cast. There's other people that ended up on the show, but they didn't get matched up with anybody, so they don't stick around very much and don't have much airtime. We have Alexa. Alexa is one of my favorite people as far as the show in general. She seems really funny, really dry. She's supposed to be plus size in someone's world. I don't know. I thought they were gonna make her being literally just like an average size person. Actually, probably smaller than the average size person in the United States. I thought they were gonna make her being quote unquote plus size the entire story arc, and I was very concerned about that. I was like, oh my God, that is so uninteresting because there's nothing to talk about. What is she, like a 12? If that, maybe a 14? Like, come on. But it only comes up briefly when they first introduce her. She just says something along the lines of like, sure, I could probably lose weight, but I don't want to. And I was like, great. Please don't let this end up being like a whole thing, because it's so unnecessary. And luckily so far it doesn't seem to be. But she's really cool, really chill. You can tell she comes from money. She's very bougie. I love a bougie bitch, but also I recognize that it's not practical sometimes. And I knew immediately that she wouldn't be on screen very much because she doesn't seem like someone that would elicit good television though. She'd probably be a cool person to know and probably a cool person to marry. But like as far as her bringing the drama, I don't see that happening. And I was pretty right. She barely shows up in the show, and she's gonna barely be mentioned in this video because there's just not much to talk about. Next up is Colleen. Okay, I feel like people feel very powerfully about Colleen. They do not like her. Off the first 4 episodes or so, she gives a lot of kind of pick-me energy, kind of insecure. She's a ballet dancer, and she seems very aware that that tends to be what makes men attracted to her, but then they don't want to know her beyond that. A bit of a spoiler, she ends up getting rejected by 2 guys. Like, is she kind of cringy, really awkward, kind of pick-me? Yes, but I don't hate her. I don't hate Colleen because I've been Colleen. And luckily, I haven't had my L's on the internet, so it works out. She just strikes me as a bit childish, needs to grow up a little bit, needs to get more familiar, not taking rejection super personally. You can see her kind of growing up, getting better at expressing herself because she seems to keep things quite chill and playful and shallow throughout the beginning of this show. And the experience that she's gonna be in, I can see really forces her to get out of her comfort zone, even though it's a terrible situation to be in. Nancy. I like Nancy. She's really bubbly, generally speaking, an empathetic person. I think she comes off as ditzy. Think that's just because she's happy and bubbly and has big titties, and I resent that. Just because you have big titties, you can't be smart. I do it every day. No, but she comes off as very naive. But if you actually kind of listen to her speak and how she interacts and how she observes, she's actually quite intelligent. I like her. She's smart. She's successful. And I hope that she makes the right decision. I hope that all her observing means something and she actually goes with her observations as opposed to her heart. Raven. Okay, she's another one that I could tell she won't be everyone's person. Okay. She seems very standoffish, kind of cold, materialistic. It's very like conventionally attractive in the like Instagram type of way. She can be quite selfish, and I think she's going to need to work on that quite a lot because otherwise she's going to end up hurting her partner, and her partner is the good one. So she better stop. I'll take him off your hands. I'll take him off your hands right now. Don't play with me. I think she's a good person. She just has, I guess, in a similar way as Colleen, some more growing to do because I could tell she's very inwardly focused and she needs to stop that. Like dead ass. Generally speaking, good head on her shoulders type person. I believe in you. Don't disappoint me. Zenab. I don't have a great read on Zeneb. She seems fine. She seems cool. I think, unfortunately, they kind of focus a lot on her insecurities and maybe her being a bit passive aggressive. But in fairness, she ends up with the guy who sucks and is very childish. So I wouldn't be surprised if she feels like she has to kind of parent him a bit. And that's why I said that's a terrible mix-up, but whatever. I hope she's in therapy. She sounds like she's gone through a lot. I think it would help her. Well, I think therapy should be for everyone. I think everyone should be in therapy. Now we have the men. Actually, let's go positive first. So let's start with Brennan. I don't have much to say about Brennan. He's one of those people that don't really show up much on screen. He seems cool. Little country boy. He seems nice. He better stay that way, in my opinion. SK is the man. I love SK. He seems so genuine, so educated, so intelligent, so affirming. He seems amazing. He is on a whole different plane than the other dudes in this show. He is so cool. And if it don't work out, I am not that far away. I'm closer than Nigeria. So, yeah. So now that we have the positives aside, Bartise. Bartise is one of the 4 men that are fighting for the worst guy this season spot. And let me tell you, that's a battle of the century. The moment he got on screen and he just kind of started talking, I was like, he a cheater. I was like, I don't know why I feel that. I don't know where that's coming from. He didn't say anything at first. I was just like, He's one of the younger men on this season. He's 25, at least at the time of filming. And when he comes in, he's like, oh, some people take pause because I'm young. They don't think I'm serious and they don't think I'm ready for a commitment like marriage. And the moment he said that, I was like, watch, this is going to be the most unserious And there were certain things that he said pretty early on that let me know that he was not here to meet someone based off of who they were alone. He is very much so. He's giving shake to some degree. Actually, there's a lot of people giving shake this season. But my thing is, if you're here, a show that's explicitly about falling in love without seeing the other person and not letting appearances be what drives your decision, why are you here? It's screaming like, I want to be on TV, clout chaser energy. Cole is also the worst. I hated Cole from the jump. I found him incredibly annoying. His energy was just very off to me. Like, he also gives me cheater energy. Bartise gives me cheater energy too. For some reason in the pods, there were several women that like seemed to really like Cole, which was just confusing to me. Very like frat bro type energy. And I guess if you're into that, whatever. To me, I hate that energy. It feels incredibly disingenuous. It feels like a performance. It feels like a display. It feels like the idea of a person, but someone who has no real core. And he also gave me racist. Did he say anything racist at first? No. But again, go with your gut. It does not steer you wrong. Matt, go to therapy. Please. The first few episodes, I didn't get a big reading on Matt because he just wasn't on camera very much. When he started hitting things off with the person that he ends up pairing off with, they had a conversation about how he has a history of being cheated on in a really messy way. And I was like, oh, babe, you got a ticking time bomb on your hand. And lo and behold, psychic. It is such a heavy burden to be clairvoyant. And the last but not least notable figure is Andrew. Okay. When Andrew was shown and he said his first few sentences, I was like, ooh, I do not like this guy. And at that point, he hadn't really said anything yet. I was like, I don't know what it is about the vibe, but it's off. I don't like it. He kind of talks like a regular on r/Gone Wild audio. And he doesn't speak like a person. He speaks like he's doing like an introductory soliloquy to a play. It's very like I'm the main character energy, but in a terrible and incredibly insecure seeming way. There's some dark energy here. You feel me? Not just like general, like kind of a terrible guy to date. He gives me worst case scenario, serial killer. Best case scenario, someone who embezzles, like someone who steals mad amounts of money. I have no proof for either of that, but those are just how I feel. And I'm becoming more in touch with my emotions. With that said, I have no evidence that he embezzles or that he's a serial killer, but I do have evidence that he is scary. So with that said, let's get on to the breakdown of the episodes themselves. It's episode 1. People are meeting each other. They're doing the speed dating again in the pod. Very quickly, we start to notice that there's certain connections forming, brewing, if you will. There ends up very quickly being like a love geometry of some sort, square, maybe a pentagon or something. Nancy and Bartiz start to make a connection. They both speak Spanish. They both have a very like high energy type way about them. They seem to make a genuine connection. Then Bartiz and Raven talk. Their connection seems to be largely that they both like to work out a lot. Okay, like, do you know how many people like to work out? That's actually not... But Bartiz seems like super smitten with her because essentially he can gather if she likes to work out a lot, she's probably hot. Which again, for Love is Blind, seems like an oddly important part of this experience for you. Raven, however, kind of talks about how in the past she's kind of been swept away by the appearances of people. Men with muscles have really been her weak point. She's like allowed people to treat her really badly because they're attractive. And I'm like, that's crazy because when a nigga start treating you bad, they get real ugly to me. So Raven ends up making a bit of a connection with SK. Again, the guy that I really love. I love SK. I think he's just a beautiful soul. He is my favorite. I love him. We meet Colleen, the ballerina. Again, it's something that seems to be very important to men, that she's flexible, which is unfortunate. This is me entirely projecting, but I have a soft spot for her because she seems very sheltered, unaware of how to people. I don't know, maybe she was raised very religious. I feel like I see myself in Colleen. She reminds me of me when I was like 23, 24. Like I was like, ooh, it is cringy to look at. But you know, I get it. I think she just has a lot of growing up to do. Maybe that's why I have a bit of a soft spot for her, because I don't think she's a bad person. She's just a child. You know, have some more life experiences. I don't think her first life experience of this magnitude should be marriage, but okay. But Colleen really sells herself via her job. She's a ballet dancer. The guys seem really interested in that. And she ends up getting a few guys on her radar. From there, we meet Andrew, the serial killer. Again, allegedly. I picked up really early that he sucks. He didn't really say anything that should alarm me per se. At first, all he did was say, like, you know, the things that he experienced. He works as a wildlife photographer now, if I'm not mistaken. He made a lot of money and found that it wasn't particularly fulfilling. So that's what he's doing now, doing wildlife photography. And I was like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but why do I hate this guy? What is he doing that makes me hate him so much? Cole. Again, the funny guy, the energetic guy, the very childish and annoying guy. I hated him immediately. Again, the energy's so off. Super frat boy.
If you can't banter, I'm not going to sleep next to you at night. I'm not taking a road trip with you. You're not having my babies. You can't make me laugh.
Obnoxious, loud, annoying man-child. I could not stand him from the jump. And I found it very interesting because I've realized over the years that this particular type of energy apparently appeals to more people than I'm fully aware of. And that's fascinating to me. Do you always have to have a persona? And if you do, that's concerning to me. Like, who are you? Like, why are you so afraid of showing who you are? That might be a little deeper than I have to go on that. But I've always felt that about people who are like showmen. I have pause 9 times out of 10. Sometimes you find that people are just showmen, but they have a genuine person, but they just like to be showmen. But it does make me go, we gonna have to do a little bit of investigating there. We meet Alexa, again, the girl that is quote unquote plus size and has Khloe Kardashian's original face. That is not my joke. Someone said that in my, I did a teleparty, like a Netflix party, and someone said that, and I have not been able to unsee it. Sorry. But she's nice. She dresses really nice. She's very bougie, we find out later. Again, I was very concerned that there was going to be this unnecessary focus on her being quote unquote plus size. And again, this is plus size to people. Okay. I'm big as a house then, because she ends up making a connection very quickly with Brennan. Again, I don't really have much to say about Brennan. He seems chill, a bit of a skeptic about the whole process, but he ends up really connecting with her very, very quickly. So after the first few initial dates, they come back, they follow up with the people that they had connections with. Bartise and Raven chat it up. They do Pilates, and Raven gets a bit vulnerable, talking about some things that she does in her life that make the men that she's dated in the past feel insecure. She does service work, like she's a bottle girl, and she seems to be like very nervous about talking about it, very concerned about how he'll take it, which I find funny because, like, to me, all I heard was, I'm a hot waitress. But he's like, yeah, I don't care. And I'm sure he doesn't, because all he garnered from that is like, wow, she must be really hot. So Bartise then goes into the pod with Nancy, and she gets a bit vulnerable as well. She tells that she has, over the years, been an egg donor. She's donated eggs 8 times in the past. And each time she's donated like 20 or 30 eggs. Possibly there could be 100 people, children out there that have her eggs. And when she donated the eggs, she said that she signed over a waiver saying that those children, when they're 18, could reach out to her if they wanted to. She said that this has resulted in her losing friends. Like, this isn't the way God meant pregnancy to work. It has also resulted in a lot of fights between her and partners because they're like, oh, you have children that aren't made of my sperm. I'm not going to touch that. Anyway, and she's like, so it's been a big deal in my life, so I want to know that you're okay with it. And Bartise is like, yeah, that's fine. That shows that you're a very caring and giving person to do that for somebody else. They also find out that he's 25, and she's like, oh, you're 25, and she's 31. And she's like, I'm concerned because when I think of a 25-year-old man, I think of playing games. If we were out in the real world and a 25-year-old approached me, I would have never gone out with him. Nancy and Andrew keep talking, or I should just say Andrew just keeps talking about everything and nothing at the same time. Nancy is somehow inexplicably into it. And while he's talking, I finally pinpoint what it is that makes me feel icky about him. And that is he, at least on camera, of course this is a reality show, heavily edited, whatever. At least while he's on screen, he does not talk about himself. He talks about things he's experienced. He doesn't talk about himself. Everything he talks about is this very like almost philosophical, grandiose yammerings, lofty ideas.
I've climbed 70-story skyscrapers, traveled the world, went to South Africa. I volunteered at wildlife conservation. 20 days spent in the bush, getting up into sunrises, dealing with the mosquitoes, hiding from the sun under Maasai blankets, and waiting with the lions.
Just this insufferable, endless braggadocio.
Enduring the scent of decaying carcasses, I have been face to face with leopards and lions that are tearing apart their meal. And there's no greater thrill, I would say, than this prospect of finding true love here.
Just wax poetic bullshit for hours and hours. I mean, just, I guess, best case scenario, like a vague, histrionic rambling, but worst case scenario, serial killer. But again, somehow Nancy seems into it. Even when he starts like delving into like sexual conversation. Now, granted, this is a dating show. This is a person that you plan to marry. So I think sex is something that's very important to talk about. But again, he doesn't have conversations with people. He has monologues. So he goes in this like long, disgusting, I ventured into the hills of Tibet and a shaman woman showed me how to ejaculate without touching myself. What was the word he used? Transcendental level of sexual pleasure of which I can teach you. You look like you need a teacher. Girl, can someone please get Professor Cal? There was nothing sexy about that at all. It was so uncomfortable to behold. Again, Nancy seems into it, so I don't want to yuck someone's yum, but I'm it. Meanwhile, Brennan goes to Colleen. He goes to Colleen and he tells her like, hey, I think, we had a connection, but I need to be upfront with you. I have feelings for somebody else. He's referring to Alexa, and he wants to pursue that. So let's like cut this off, basically. It's very awkward, but I respect him for being upfront and not dragging things out if he knew that he knew who he wanted. So he gained a lot of respect from me for that. But, rejection sucks. So I get it. Like, she was hurt by it. She was crying about it. I get it. Again, rejection doesn't feel great. But she recognizes that, you know, she doesn't take rejection well, and it's something that she really needs to work on. And, you know, I applaud everyone involved. I think it was a great learning experience for both of them. After that, he goes to Alexa, tells her that he loves her already, and she reciprocates. And this is a side note. This is more me as a viewing participant. I was sitting there like, man, I may not be emotionally available. I've never been in love. I've had men on more than one occasion accidentally tell me they love me. And because it was accidental, you didn't say it with your chest, and I'm pretty sure it was not sincere. I just ignore it. To be honest with you, men accidentally telling me they love me in a very awkward situation is my favorite thing to ignore. I'm sitting here like, damn, I couldn't imagine myself like spilling my heart out to a guy just being like, oh my God, like I love you. I feel like you are everything. You make me feel like home and all that shit. I'm like, oh. Again, I stand by. I'm not emotionally unavailable. I am unimpressed. Okay, for some reason, Zenab and Cole start to hit it off. I don't. I don't understand the pairing. He's incredibly annoying and childish, and she seems quite the opposite. I guess opposites attract, whatever. But we learn more about her upbringing, what shaped her into the serious person that she was. Basically, she lost both of her parents very young, and it forced her to grow up really quickly. He finds that very attractive, but my thing that I was thinking when I heard that is like, oh, she's gonna be parenting him. But because he's starting to hit things off with Zenab, Cole goes to Colleen, who is another woman that he was hitting things off with. Again, she was the girl that was rejected before, and essentially he has a conversation with her about whether or not they can get into something deeper on the emotional side, which is ironic coming from Cole, but because a lot of their interactions have been very like chill and superficial. Another one that seems to be very interested in her because if she's a ballerina, there's some indication for some reason that she's hot. I don't know why that tells you anything about what a person looks like, but he's like, she's a ballerina, she's probably hot. But because they're very superficial, he's like, I want to get into like a deeper conversation with you. And she resists that deeply. I don't articulate my feelings well. I don't like to go deep. And I'm like, babe, why are you here? If you're afraid to have emotionally connected conversation, why are you getting married? But Cole is like, well, if you can't do that, I can't imagine myself being married to someone that I don't have the capacity to get that in the trenches with, essentially, because marriage isn't all fun and games. I need to be able to talk to you about the hard things. And if you can't do that, I don't know if we're on the same page. I don't know if we want the same things. It's like, girl, be for real. You trying to get married. Which, again, ironic coming from Cole, but at least, you know, a broken clock, whatever. And so that essentially ends with her being rejected again. So after those two rejections, she decides to focus on Matt because he is another guy that she's had some connection with. The episode ends because Brennan proposes to Alexa, and it ends with them about to meet each other for the first time. And I gotta say, this episode gave me so much anxiety because, again, are they gonna be so focused on her being barely plus size? She might be a 10. Episode 2, we finally see Alexa and Brennan's reactions to each other, and they seem to be very happy with the looks of the other person. I nearly cried because I was like, oh, I didn't realize that made me so anxious. I guess because as a fat woman, I'm looking at her and I'm like, she's skinny to me. Ain't no chance she's gonna be loved for who she is. I'm like, oh, But when he like saw her, he was like genuinely like, wow, I'm so attracted to you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And it also continues. It doesn't just stop because, as we'll find, a lot of the men here lose interest even for people that they say they're so attracted to. After being rejected by the last two guys, Colleen again is focusing on Matt. I start to have some major alarm bells go off when we started to learn a little bit more about Matt. Mainly that he's been married before. He married his high school sweetheart straight out of high school. They were married for about 6 years from the ages of 18 and 24. He's 27 now. And they got divorced because she was cheating on him and she got pregnant by the other man. Oh God. Oh no. In so many directions. Like, one, that's really fucked up that someone would do that to you, especially someone your first love would cheat on you and get pregnant by the other guy. Like, that's a lot. I can see how that would be incredibly traumatizing, disorienting, like destabilizing. However, my second thought after that, after we've done the empathizing, Colleen, And I know you're not going to do this because you don't think like deeply about things, self-admittedly. But my first thought was, Colleen, you better ask him, how are you healing from that? What have you done? Like, what have you done since then, healing wise? That's a big betrayal. And the thing that I've noticed is that men don't tend to fully process pain and mistrust, deception and betrayal and the loss of love well. They don't. They just distract. They'll meet another person. They'll get in another relationship. They don't heal. And because they haven't healed, they take it out on everybody. So I would ask him, hey, babe, have you been therapized? Like, what has healing looked like for you in that 3 years? How have relationships, like your dating experience, been since the end of that marriage? Because if you haven't healed, the person that's going to get hit on the other side of your anger and your frustration and your unprocessed emotion will be me. I don't know if she picked up on that, but my first red flag was like, oh, he's going to be jealous. He's going to be angry. He's going to be paranoid. You need to be prepared for that. And I could tell she was not. She was not. She did not see that coming. And I was like, oh, I did. Clairvoyance. Meanwhile, Andrew is still speaking in riddles like the fucking cat from Alice in Wonderland. And for some reason, Nancy finds Andrew alluring enough that she's confused between whether she should pick him or Bartise. Not great choices. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Meanwhile, Bartise is still between Raven and Nancy. But Bartise kind of reaches a final decision that it shouldn't be Raven because he... This is funny. It's fucked up, but it's funny. He starts to share like a very sensitive and vulnerable conversation about his parents' divorce. And in the middle of that very vulnerable conversation, she started doing jumping jacks. She started working out like full on. And he hears her and he's like, are you doing jumping jacks in the middle of me spilling my heart out? And she's like, yeah. Oh yeah, you can hear that? Oh, that's funny. She doesn't apologize. She just now, when I first saw this, I was like, Raven, that's fucked up. But the more we learn about Bartise, it's still fucked up, but it's funny now. However, Raven and SK talk after that, and she was working out during that too, but something about the conversation with SK made her pause and actually sit there and listen. He talks a bit about how he grew up in a polygamous family in Nigeria, but that whole experience let him know that he has no interest in participating in that particular way of life, particular way of marriage. He also is not interested in kind of the patriarchal structure that he was raised with. He's more interested in being with someone who wants to be equals, who wants to be partners. And I'm just like, oh, he's so attractive. Oh my God. And then when he like compliments Raven, it shows again where his priorities are. He's just cool, man. I just really, really like him. I really do. He seems great. But back to someone I don't like, Cole. During another date with Zeneb, he basically lets her know that he's actually been married before to a woman that he knew for 2 months. They were married in total 4.5 months and then got divorced. She seems to take that information, again, better than I would. I don't know. I get accused of being judgy as a Capricorn, but it's like, I'm not judgy. I'm observant. What does that tell you about a person who gets married after 2 months of knowing someone? It tells you they're impulsive. It tells you that they don't understand the gravity of something like marriage. It tells me that they just be doing shit. And there's nothing that gets on my nerves more than someone that just be doing shit when it's something that's very important. Like, it's frustrating to me to see people just live so flippantly. They just be doing shit. That's wild to me. But Zeneb doesn't seem as concerned as I would be about that information. Because, like, what makes you ready to get married now? What ended your 4-month marriage? What happened? So, and probably one of the funniest parts of this episode, Bartise has officially decided that he doesn't want to be with Raven. He wants to be with Nancy. He has to break up with Raven, so to speak. So he starts off, you can tell he's trying to do this like very thought out speech. He might be a little nervous. He's like, I want to like let her down easy, but I just don't feel like, we're on the same page. He compliments her, compliments their connection, even though all they talked about was like working out. I'm sure that we would make an attractive couple. I can tell that we're used to getting a lot of attention from the opposite sex. And these 2 points, them making an attractive couple, them being attractive to the opposite sex, them looking good together, is a sentiment that he repeats over and over and over and over again. For a show that has nothing to do with that, it is astounding how important that must be to him. Not even just finding his partner attractive. We would be attractive to other people. They would find us attractive. We would look good together. This, as well as some other things that he says, is giving narc. I'm no professional. I can't diagnose. I'm just saying. All I can do is look and observe. He basically is like, I want to be with someone else. I want to be with Nancy. And again, it's obvious that he's trying to like let her down easy, but she's just sitting there eating and she's like, okay. And you could tell that he expected her to be more broken up about it. And he's kind of thrown off that she doesn't really care that much. Honestly, I'm where you're at. Like, I honestly like someone else better. Like, I'm really connecting with him in a way that I don't think we connect. I find this whole exchange so funny because he was going there to break up with her, to end things with her. But when I tell you he looked salty when she was like, yeah, it's a no for me too. He looked mad. And we find out later that apparently his decision between Nancy and Raven caused him so much emotional strife that he was like crying about it. So I'm sitting here like, okay, the woman that you genuinely get along with, like emotionally, Nancy, and the girl that the only thing y'all have in common is that y'all work out, and you're crying over the choice between the two. And I'm like, interesting. He goes into the green room with other guys and he's talking about how like he was really into Raven and now he's not into Raven anymore. He really wants to be with Nancy. In his core, he wants to be with Nancy. He says the word core a lot and it's just like, ugh. And I think it was very interesting, this conversation, because he's like, because he knows that SK is talking to Raven too. He's like, she's obviously, based off of, you know, what we can gather from her, she's obviously a very attractive girl. And SK, because he's the real one, he says she's very smart. Their priorities are not the same. And that moment I was like, SK, love him, quality man, truly. I don't know, it got me thinking a little bit about, like, we kind of talk about people who are less than conventionally attractive finding a hard time dating, but I think there's also something to be said for a person like Raven, who in a lot of ways is very like conventionally attractive, and how that stops people from seeing her like as a person, because she's been pigeonholed, bottle girl hot, not having much substance, not having much of a mind. But being in a show like this allows people to understand who she is outside of being hot. The only thing that people like Bartiz can see is that she's attractive and they will look good together. Even though he's never seen her, again, based off of her occupation and kind of just how she talks about her life, it kind of reads a girl who's probably attractive. It was just something to think about. I thought it was interesting. Bartiz then goes to Nancy, telling her that he loves her, and she's like, I don't feel comfortable saying that to you because I'll be honest with you, I still am between you and Andrew. Girl, again, rocking a hard place. But with that said, two other couples get engaged. Cole proposes to Zeneb. Again, weird ass combination, but whatever. They meet each other and seemingly find each other attractive at first. SK proposes to Raven. And I like the combination, again, assuming Raven can get out her own ass and stop being so selfish and insecure. But I think they could work. I really do. I just need her to stop being such a fucking Aries. And then Andrew proposes to Nancy, and that ends this episode. And I was petrified. I was so scared. I was like, bitch, please don't accept Andrew. Episode 3 starts, and God bless her, Nancy turns him down. I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, please don't do it. And this is the clip that everyone's referencing. They do his solo interview about how he feels about being turned down for his proposal. He looks at the camera guy and he's like, are you rolling? And he says, yeah. He goes in his pocket, brings out eye drops, does like 12 drops in each eye, lets them stream down his face, and he's like, I never thought I could love someone so much that it brings me to tears. Serial killer energy. Did he think they were gonna edit that out? Is that what that is? That he thought they were gonna edit it out? Is he trolling? Like, I don't know. Dude's scary. Keep him over there. Like, there's something about him that gives very Andrew Tate to me. Like, this boastful, painfully insecure energy from a man so outrageously terrible that it takes like a sizable amount of time to figure out whether or not this is parody. Like, it feels like a joke, right? You're like, this can't be real. This must be a troll. Observe long enough and you realize, no, he's Dead ass. Frightening, scary, weird ass. Anyway, so then after that, Bartise proposes to Nancy, which again, rocking a hard place. I guess between the two, is that, I guess that's better. I see that her personality really attracts empathy suckers. SK and Raven see each other for the first time, and it's awkward, but based off of their interactions in the pods, that's not that weird to me. Raven seems very not particularly affectionate, which is something that she told SK before they met. So I don't think it's like she doesn't find him attractive. I don't think that's it. I think it's more of she's just awkward and not particularly affectionate physically, but hopefully they can find a middle ground. Then Nancy and Bartise see each other for the first time, and that's the first time that we see weird cameraman. I'm not going to mention him a whole lot. I think it's the same guy because that's the vibe, because he zooms right in on her titties. And there's another part of the show where he's like zooming in on Raven's feet. Can you back the up?
Oh, well, yes, I
we're
hear
engaged.
you.
God, I just want to pick you up right now.
So that's all the couples now. They're all matched up. It is Colleen and Matt, Cole and Zeneb, Alexa and Brennan, SK and Raven, and Bartise and Nancy. Again, if I'm not talking a lot about a particular couple, just assume they're happy. Most of the couples end up having sex that first night, except for SK and Raven. Again, she's not particularly physically affectionate. That does not surprise me. But no judgment if they did or didn't. I feel like, if you're going to be married for the rest of your life, you should test drive it. You test drive a new car. Zeneb and Cole seem to be a bit tense the next morning. Basically, Zeneb was kind of off-put because after sex, Cole didn't really cuddle up to her and they weren't super affectionate. He kind of just silently woke up and the vibe was off to Zeneb, and she's basically like, I feel like he's not attracted to me. And Cole has this very confusing kind of explanation for that. He was just like, oh, I just didn't want to wake her up. He says a whole lot of words to ultimately say, I'm trying to make myself be attracted to her. Like, I'm attracted to her. Like, we had sex. Like, I could have sex with her, but I'm not head over heels essentially, which again, love is blind. She could literally look like anything. This is going to become a reoccurring theme of this season. Basically men meeting their partners and not being attracted to them, which is crazy to me because the people that they're not attracted to are so attractive. But I'm also become hyper aware that I don't understand men's beauty standards at all. They be liking the most average looking women I've ever seen in my life. So episode 4, this episode gets really interesting. Let me pour some more wine. Let's just finish her off. This is the episode where they meet the exes, right? Essentially meeting all the people that they talked to in the pods, but they didn't pick, see what they look like, and whether or not you have any regrets based off of that. Again, leading up to this, there's some tension between Zeneb and Cole. They basically have this conversation where they have to quote unquote rekindle what they had in the pods. And I'm like, babe, it's been 30 hours? You're on day 2. You got to rekindle already. It's obvious that Cole is struggling so hard to get past Zeneb's appearance. And I'm just like, but Zeneb's hot. I don't Zeneb, I don't but yeah, they have this thing. They get everyone together, see everyone that you didn't choose. They can see who you chose and all that. Immediately, I had all my concerns about Bartise possibly being a cheater confirmed, because let me tell you something. He sees Raven come in, and the way that he talks about Raven as an engaged man is disgusting to me. Deeply inappropriate. It was bad. He's like, well, she's hot. She's a smoke show. She's this, that, and the other. Other people at the event would be like, yeah, the person I would have chose, they're objectively attractive, but I'm happy with who I chose. He was so intense in talking about how hot she was that it came off as if, damn, I'm regretting my decision. And I'm just like, ooh, ew. Cole also is a bit sketch. He also has this vibe of oh, I wish I would have picked someone else, particularly Colleen. She's apparently as attractive as he envisioned her being. And basically, Cole spends this entire event, not the entire event, but a lot of the event and a lot of subsequent events after this, basically complaining that he's not attracted to Zeneb. He's not feeling love and warmth, and he's not physically attracted to her. Again, season 3 Shake. He's also Shake-alicious, similar to Shake. During a conversation amongst the men, SK kind of mentions that, there's him and Raven are still, getting to know each other now in this new area, now that they've met each other physically, and basically says like, no, we didn't like jump each other's bones. We weren't like all over each other. We were a little physically awkward at first, but we're warming up to each other as time goes on. And I'm patient and, excited to learn more about her in this capacity. And here comes Bartise, that obviously cares far too much. He's like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Like, why are y'all like awkward far away from each other? If it was me and Raven, she would be in my, I'm just saying, not to be rude, but like she would be in my lap. An engaged man. Because his ego is so bruised, he goes on this whole thing of like, I don't even think she likes SK. I think she's with him because I broke up with her. You are being quite presumptuous. You are creating a whole narrative that no one said is there. And then he has this whole like thing by himself. He was like, I'm not even going to talk to Raven because like it's obvious that she's used to getting attention from guys and I'm not giving her all the attention she gets. It's just like, she don't give a f. She was exercising through your trauma. She don't like you. And then because he just couldn't shut the fuck up, he ultimately says that if he has any regrets, his regret is that he didn't give Raven those last few days in the pod so that they could have maybe figured something out while engaged to Nancy. And no, it does not stop there. Because guess who he tells this all to, for the most part, to after that? Nancy, the woman he's engaged to. They go back to their room and she's like, oh, how was it meeting everybody? Do you have any thoughts now that you've seen everybody? Whatever. He basically relays her that SK and Raven have not been physical. He doesn't just tell her. He tells it in a way indicative of a man who cares far too much. He's like, yeah, I was crying over you and Raven at one point. And Nancy's like, oh, wow. Okay. Please tell me you're listening. Because when you in love, you can't listen. That's the problem with people in love or even in like, you just don't listen. Like, listen. And she seems like she's taking it in, but I don't know. Only time will tell. Episode 5 opens with Cole and Zenab having a very uncomfortable and awkward conversation about how after having met all the girls, like the girl that he would have been most attracted to if they met more conventionally would have been Colleen. Zenab basically asks, is that something that bothers him, that she doesn't look like his usual type? Maybe I'm just not familiar with white people beauty, because to me, Zenab looks like a white woman, maybe slightly spicy. I mean, the only giveaway is that her name is Zenab, but it's obviously an uncomfortable conversation. I can imagine it would be. Speaking of awkward conversation, Nancy and Bartise also have an awkward conversation over Raven. Basically, Nancy is like, I'm actually really shocked that you were attracted in the pods to me and Raven because we are such different personalities. Raven is very chill, very dry, a bit negative. I'm really peppy and energetic and blah, blah, blah. So these seem like two completely different people. How were you like equally at one point in love with both of these people, so you say? He then commences to explain his connection to both of them. Nancy was the girl that he was really emotionally connected to, had a lot in common, matched each other's energies, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, Raven, we really connected over fitness and nutrition. And that's it. That's all he brought up. It's like, we both work out. Of course, that might have been edited out if he said anything else that he had in common with Raven. But as far as us as an audience, all we've heard you talk about is how hot she is and how hot y'all would have been together and how that really hurt to let go of that opportunity. So after that, the messy ass producers have them all have a pool party in which they can talk to the people that they didn't pick. Bartise goes up to Raven. They have a conversation. It was so funny. It was like a replay of the like I'm breaking up with you conversation, but she just obviously doesn't give a about this conversation. I knew you'd be hot. That's what the conversation boils down to. Like, I knew you'd be hot. I knew you get a lot of male attention. Could have seen us getting a lot of attention from other people. And Raven's like accepting the compliments kind of politely more so than anything. But she's like, oh, thanks or whatever. And Raven's like, you know, I wasn't particularly flattered by that conversation because he didn't have some glowing compliments about Pod Raven. He didn't have any glowing compliments about when he didn't know what I looked like. Raven can be annoying, but sometimes she's smart, and I like that. And she says to him, she was like, what the fuck would we have even talked about? Like, yeah, I work out. I think that we weren't compatible. Like, we had similarities, like we had things that we like to do, but as far as like emotionally compatible, we have nothing to talk about. And I think we pick the people who are best for us emotionally, which is the point of this. It's love is blind. And he's just like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. He's such a bitch. Speaking of bitches, Cole is also a bitch. And at this pool party, he's basically telling everyone who would listen that he's struggling to find Zenapot. He tells Alexa, and Alexa's like, I didn't even have to pry for that. I just said, hey, how are things going? And he's off to the races. He then goes up to Colleen and they talk. He asks her if she has any reservations, if she's happy. She's like, yeah, I'm happy with Matt. If it was today, I would marry him. I would say yes. Like, I have no reservations. I love Matt. Again, goes into how he wouldn't have picked Zena. If this were the real world, he wouldn't have like gone up to her in a bar. And she's like, oh, like, who is there someone here that you would have gone up to? And he, before she can even finish, he's like, you. And she's like, oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, if this were quote unquote the real world and we had met in a very conventional way, then I could have seen myself chatting with you at a bar. It's a very awkward conversation. I could tell, especially for Colleen. It didn't feel like she was flirting with him, but it felt like he was flirting with her. Cole seems to be more so just like expressing his regret that he didn't pick Colleen because he's more attracted to her. Very like, well, I'm engaged, so I can't do anything about it. Ooh, bad energy. Bad energy. Nancy and Bartice talk after the pool party. She's like, oh, how did the conversation with Raven go? Goes on and on again about how Raven is hot and but he connected with Nancy more emotionally. And then he says something that triggered specifically me. Basically, I've been in love before. Nothing like this before, but I've been in love before. And that love kind of just fizzled out. And I don't know what caused it. It just did. And I just stopped being interested with the people I've dated in the past. And the moment I heard that, I was like, ooh. Again, I'm no professional. However, in my unprofessional opinion, he's in the love bombing stage. Again, no professional, but if I'm like conceptualizing him in my head, he's a person that's rushing for the supply, the validation supply. But once he has it from Nancy, there's nothing else to desire at that point. Again, no professional, but I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to bleed into the like a general discard phase because I don't need it anymore. I'm chasing validation. You've given it to me. So now what? Let me go look for it somewhere else. I'm no psychologist. I'm no psychiatrist. I'm no therapist. I'm just a bitch that observes. Speaking of which, he kind of asked her, like, we've been living kind of in a fairy tale at this point. We're living on this retreat. You know, everything's been roses and daisies and shit. Would you say yes to me right now? And she said, absolutely. And he was like, even though you don't know how I handle conflict, even though you don't know how I am in the quote unquote real world. And she's like, sign me up. All I want is you. No. Like, I know for some people that might be very romantic. I hated hearing that. I was like, no, you don't know how he handles conflict. That's a very important thing to learn. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. It's like, what if the way he handles conflict is burning your house down? What if the way he handles conflict is being abusive? What if he starts discarding you like he said he's done every girl he's dated up until this point? And also, going back on that, let me just mention that again. If a guy says that to you, like, I just fizzle out. I don't know what happens. I just stop caring. Trust me, you are not unique. unique. You are not different no matter what he says after that. No, you are not. Like, I don't know, but I just feel some type of way about you. No, we don't. No, we don't. He feels some way about you right now. Please listen to Big Sis Ken. I know what I'm talking about. I've just, I usually, other girls, I would have fizzled out by now, but you have all my attention. No, you don't. He is love bombing you, babe. And he may believe it. I think people think love bombing is essentially like some like Machiavellian, like, ooh, let me manipulate you. No, he probably believes it. He's like, I love you. I love you with every fiber of my being. And then one day his fiber of his being will change and he just don't no more. That's what he's telling you. He will wake up one day and just not. Zenab and Cole also talk about the pool party, and it's also very uncomfortable. My lips are so dry. Zenab asked Cole to rate her, and he gave her a 9. And she asked, was there anyone here that you would give a 10? And he said, Raven and Colleen. Now, Colleen is, between the two of them, Colleen was one that he had any extended connection with. So she didn't take that very well. Again, I'm aware that I don't know white people, apparently. I don't know what white people find hot. It's really fascinating to me to some degree. Colleen is not a 10 in my book. No offense. If you're watching this, Colleen, because you'll be surprised who end up watching these videos. If you're watching this, Colleen, you're a beautiful girl. You're a cute girl. In my opinion, she's not a 10. That is a normal looking Michigan University student. But he finds her more attractive than Zenab. For all intents and purposes, just told her that. And she feels like shit about it. Like, I understand that. And he's like, what, do you want me to just act like other women aren't beautiful? And it's like, that's not what she's, okay, whatever. I wouldn't be arguing with him. Because to me, I feel like if you can't get past the fact that I'm not the person that you would have picked, then you don't have to settle for me. That's just how I feel about it. But she says, okay, we'll just move past it. We're gonna try this as hard as possible. And if along the way we decide that this doesn't work, then we just decide that this doesn't work. And that's fair enough. Like, we'll give it a good shot. We'll see where it goes. He's like, if you're concerned that I want somebody else or that I'm confused about who I picked, I'm not confused. I chose you. I want you. I'm attracted to you. Liar. This episode ends with Matt and Colleen talking about the conversation that she had with Cole. I haven't really talked about them much up until this point because they've been happy. They've been on like cloud 9. Remember what I said earlier in this video about Matt being a ticking time bomb? Colleen tells him that she had that conversation with Cole, but he took it immediately as flirting. And like, since we're in the real world now, whatever happens, happens. That's the way he understood it. And that's because he's in a fucking trigger spiral and he didn't hear shit that she said before. So he starts flipping. And I can imagine it being incredibly triggering, especially if you've been with a person who's kind of reacted like this. I'm not going to get played. I'm not going to get played again. I've been played before. Nasty and condescending. He's like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm over it. I'm not going to get played again. I'm not going to get played again. He goes to like the producer or like the cameraman and was like, what would you do? What would you do if your girl was like, if we met in a bar, whatever happens, happens? And I'm like, she didn't say that. That's the end of the episode. Him flipping out and like threatening to leave the show. Episode 6. This is the beginning of all the couples headed back. It's also going to be meeting some family, getting used to life in the real world of sorts. There's like a transitional period where they're all staying in the same apartment complex until they are able to go to their actual homes, like actual apartment. Since the last time we've seen Colleen and Matt, they've made up. But before they head off to the real world, they see the devil, the Lachey's, and they're very messy and ask Colleen and Matt if everything's good because they were arguing yesterday. Cole is like hyper focused on them talking about having troubles, perhaps. They start sharing spaces. Zenab and Cole are bickering very early because he's really messy. We also found out that his parents aren't particularly supportive of the union, which I don't really blame them. The last time you got married, you knew that bitch for 2 months. Now you meeting someone that you've known for even less time. This is like, girl, I would be like, I'm not doing this. We spent so much money for the first wedding. It's gonna last 6 months at most. Not doing it. That's a lot of, I gotta go off work. No. They're also apparently very religious, so they're not cool with the fact that they're living together. SK and Raven are together. They seem happy, albeit she's very bratty and complains a lot. Not about SK, but just life in general. She's like, this coffee pot, I don't know how to coffee pot. You were very loud when you were sleeping. There's too much construction. She's very, again, a bit negative. Unfortunately, I see myself in her. Stop it. Enjoy being with your man that you seem to love so much, so you say. Nancy and Bartice are together, and she's actually showing him the properties that she owns and renovates. Through this, we learn a few things. One, Nancy has money. She don't get nothing on credit. That's cash. That's move. And also she has properties that she owns, 2 properties that she owns with her ex, who is also her business partner. I'll give Bartise this. This would be also something that makes me very uncomfortable if I was, getting involved with that financially, because that's your ex. What if he gets jealous that you're getting married to another person and he's like, oh, the thing that we have a joint mortgage on, I'm going to just stop paying it and now you have to do it. You and your husband can figure it out. Like, that's concerning. That's a very concerning thing. She says she trusts him, but I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that either if I were Bartise. But the other thing that Bartise kind of notices, he's like, wait, you got money. So if you got money, suddenly I have hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's very much so this like, what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine type person. That's crazy. It's not crazy. That's the way it should be if you're married. But it's also the reason why I may never get married. Because my money is mine. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. Like, what's mine is mine. And what's yours is mine. Oh, speaking of people with money, so does Alexis. And apparently they got, again, Kardashian original face money. Big lip filler, horse teeth money. And this is kind of a culture shock for Brennan, who was raised in abject poverty. He's worked really hard to no longer be there, and apparently him and his family are a lot more stable now. But when he was growing up, he grew up poor. Like, they wouldn't eat if it weren't for like some of his extended family. So there is a conversation a bit about Alexa wanting a prenup, and luckily he takes that really well. Raven meets SK's mom and brother. They seem so sweet. The mom seems like just good energy, really good energy. Raven, girl,
Chew it.
You can swallow it.
Swallow it.
Can I use a fork or not?
You can use a fork.
Okay.
I will say that when asked like what was it about SK that made her pick him or want to be with him, she did have like thoughtful responses to that, as opposed to just like the energy was good. That's how like a lot of the other people were responding. And the mom is like super welcoming and super kind. She was really, really sweet. So that interaction was pretty good. Bartise then meets Nancy's family. They first go over to her father's house. That's where he meets her brothers as well as her father. And the brothers kind of sit him down in the back and they're just like, oh, what did you want about with Nancy? Like, what was it that made you interested in Nancy? And he gives a very bland, like, she brings out the best in me. She's such a great energy. Vibes are great. And so one of her brothers is like, that was very bland. That wasn't particularly convincing to me. Like, she brings out the best in everybody. Looks fade. What if she ended up being 400 pounds one day? You still care about her? And this says a bunch of words to basically say no. Basically like, I'm not going to say that looks aren't important, because they are important. They then go and meet Nancy's mom and some of Nancy's friends. And the mom is kind of like, look, I have raised my daughter to be a fighter. I will be there. She will never be without my care and my consideration if she wants it. Act right. Cole meets Zeneb's stepmother and stepbrother. Her and Cole seem to get along pretty well, and she was able to be a bit of a comfort for him because his parents don't seem to be supportive of the relationship and the marriage. Cole still sucks, but hopefully this is giving him more insight on Zeneb and being able to actually love her effectively. We'll see about that. I doubt it. Raven and SK have a bump in their relationship because they talk about how he's a student and he'll be moving in the fall. He has a full ride to Berkeley. Again, very, 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 very smart, because he'll be a student. That kind of hinders his ability to have money because he's a full-time student. So they were trying to like figure out how finances will work when he's away. Like, they'll be long distance. And basically she's like, well, I just feel like I don't want my quality of life to suffer. And I understand that. I completely understand that. I thought getting married would mean that my quality of life would be better. And it's like, now I'm supporting you and myself, and I just feel like it's only fair that you pay for half my rent. Girl, shut the up. Be reasonable. He's a student. You can wait 2 years and he's going to be making money out of college. He's in tech or whatever the hell he's in. If you don't shut up and do it, girl, sound dumb as hell. Now for the most uncomfortable part of this episode, which is Nancy and Bartise falling into a conversation about abortion. And it's a lot. On top of everything, Bartise seems to be on a spectrum of anti-abortion. The conversation comes up when Nancy kind of talks about, as I'm getting older, the risks of me having more birth defects during my pregnancy increases. What are your thoughts about abortion if we have enough information to tell us that the child will have certain birth defects? Like, what do you feel about that? And he immediately is like a strong, absolutely not. I don't care. I don't care anything. That's my kid. I want the kid to be born. She's like, in my experience, in my field, she's a speech pathologist as well as a realtor. She'd be doing a lot of shit, I guess. I've observed the immense emotional toll and trauma that puts on children and their families. And I used to leave home from work and cry every day just for hours and hours about all the pain that all of these families had to go through. And I would ask myself, if I were ever put in that position, would I do it? And I reached the conclusion that I would not. Now, I will say, to some degree, I understand both of their arguments, albeit both have incredibly immense issues and concerns that I have. For Nancy, namely ableism, she doesn't mean it in that way, but you know, it is what it is. But I'd also rather a child not have to suffer if you know that you really can't handle that. Because the only person that's going to suffer most from that is the child that you already knew that you couldn't take care of financially, emotionally, whatever. So at the end of the day, understand where she's coming from. And Bartiz is like, well, that's my kid. I don't care how the kid comes out. That sounds all well and good. But one, we're basing it off of just how Bartiz kind of has interacted up until this point. And I'm just like, I don't see you being consistent in taking care of a child in general, but one with special needs, I also wouldn't see you being particularly helpful and consistent in that. And it's also very, very myopic, I think, to insinuate that it would be equal on both sides between him and Nancy taking care of any child, but especially a child with special needs, because at the end of the day, you, societally speaking, if we're basing off of statistics, you will be sizably less involved in the caretaking of any child that's born. So it's really easy for you to say, I want as many kids as possible, because in a way, you're not expected to raise them. That's how I felt about Cole earlier in the show. He's like, I want a bunch of kids. I want 7 kids. I want a whole football team of kids. And it's like, it's easy to want that many kids when you have no plans on taking care of them. You have no plans on actually raising kids. You plan to play football, plan to do the cool, fun stuff, but you don't actually plan on raising the kids. So it's very easy for you to say that. So I kind of see where both of them are coming from, but at the end of it, I think the thing that left the biggest bad taste in my mouth is because they started to talk more about abortion just generally. Basically Bartiz is like, I feel like you should have one freebie. You should be allowed one abortion if you're young and if you don't have money, and all these like qualifications around when you should be allowed to have an abortion. He's very like, you should only be able to have one. Nancy is like, I don't agree with that. There's so many ways you can get pregnant unplanned. Like if you need or desire an abortion, I feel like anyone should be able to get it whenever. And this is just the most frustrating conversation to behold, because I could tell that Nancy thought that this conversation was bringing them together. We're going to share our differences and then come to a meaningful conclusion. Bartiz's mind, this is just another thing that he doesn't like about her. And I could tell, I was like, this is going to be the beginning of him starting to do his whole discard phase. Episode 7. I've already talked a bit about Alexa being rich. In this episode and in the end of the last episode, Brendan meets her family. It goes well enough. Matt introduces Colleen to his family. Colleen talks with his mom for a bit, and she seems really nice, but really concerned about her son getting hurt again and her son hurting somebody else. Zeynep moves into Cole's apartment, and it's disgusting. He lives like an 18-year-old boy. So nasty. There's flies in the toilet. Do you routinely not flush the toilet? That's disgusting. But she's like, I know he's messy, but what can I do? I love him. Nancy meets Bartiz's family, and they seem nice enough, albeit they have very similar views as Bartise around the abortion conversation, because that comes up. His sister seems to be very passionate about it. She started crying and shit, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Nancy explains where she's coming from, and they seem to have a generally positive interaction. SK meets Raven's friends, and they are incredibly rude. They seem to be like, from the jump, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Y'all gonna have a long distance relationship, and that's very unfair to my friend. And like, just real negative energy, and like based off of no information. Alexa meets Brennan's family. They seem nice, but they warn her that Brennan has some tendencies toward running away. And if I heard that, I would have been like, okay, something to be mindful of. Something to talk about. I think that would be something that I would bring up with him after that. Yellow, orange flag. I'd be like, I don't like that. So, y'all remember when I said that Bartise is going to go into a discard phase? So he starts that. I think the abortion conversation started that, but it also seems to be that suddenly he's very directly saying that he's not attracted physically to Nancy. When they first met, he was like, oh, I'm physically attracted to Nancy. Then he saw Raven, and then he's like, I'm less physically attracted to Raven. And now he's just straight up, I'm not attracted to her anymore at all. Again, she's hot. Great cheekbones. I don't like the lipstick she be wearing sometimes, but like, great cheekbones, beautiful freckly skin. Her hair looks soft, giant titties. What are you talking about? And Nancy immediately can tell that the energy's off, and she, takes it really hard to her self-esteem. And I'm just like, damn, that's unfortunate. It's 11 days before the wedding, and everyone comes together. Colleen and Zeneb end up talking a bit about the conversation that Colleen had with Cole. That was confusing. Oh my God. And how Cole was attracted to Colleen, and how that conversation led to Matt blowing up in his trigger spiral. So after that, Zeneb goes to Matt, and she tries to hear how he understood that conversation went. He explained how he understood it, which again was not how that conversation went. And now Zeneb is looking at Cole shitty all over again. I am happy though that it seems like she wasn't blaming Colleen for that conversation. I'm really upset that Cole put you in that situation, because that's a Cole issue. Why did he put you in that situation? And I'm happy that she didn't go up to Colleen, because objectively that's like fodder to be jealous over Colleen because your fiance finds her more attractive than you. But she didn't blame Colleen. She was like, no, this is a Cole issue. But before we can get into that, everyone comes now. And when I say everyone, I mean everybody. People that were on the show but didn't get matched up with people. So that means who's along for the ride? Andrew. Here we go. He goes up to Nancy. He's like, Nancy, can I steal you away? No. But during this conversation, this was the first time he's been on screen where he's actually had a conversation that didn't feel entirely scripted. Hopefully this was who he was more in the pods, because this dude's scary. He gives you the EBGBs. So I hope that he was, more like this conversation, because otherwise I'm just confused. He says kind of jokingly like, I was in love with you, damn it. Do you have any regrets on not being with me? And she's like, no.
The one thing that people kept saying about you was like, Andrew's so smart. And I was like, is he? Like, maybe I didn't catch that.
That was funny. That was some shit I would say, probably. But then she starts to talk about how she's very aware that Bartise is not physically into her, and like how much that hurts her. It hurts that the person that she loves doesn't love her the way that she loves him. And you could just see the look on Andrew's face. He has that like vulture hovering over a bleeding deer type stare, and he's posing. Oh God, that's crazy. Well, if there's anything you need, I'm here. And it's like, I will need nothing. Then comes Bartise. And another thing in the cycle of bullshit of toxicity is that after the discard phase, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to like move on with your life in any way. Because though he has discarded you, he's entitled to you though. You are mine to discard. God forbid you go talk to another man. Granted, this whole scene was incredibly scripted. It was incredibly unnatural. So I don't know, but it would fall in line with my conceptualization of Bartise, where he's like, what's going on here? What's going on? What's going on, buddy? Hey, pal. What you guys talking about? The vibe seems a little off. But meanwhile, Matt goes to Colleen, and that conversation about what Cole said to her starts all over again. We talked about this. Like, why? We already settled this. Are you serious? Are you serious? Like, and I get her. I'm like, I did nothing wrong. Let's start there. And the conversation I told you was completely innocent. I did not flirt with him. And now you're about to blow up again over something I told you did not happen. Meanwhile, Zenab goes to Cole, again, angry about the conversation, but she makes more sense to be angry about that conversation because Cole was flirting with her. I get it. You're attracted to Colleen. You find her more attractive. She's a knockout. I will never look like her. Again, I don't understand white people's standard of beauty. She's a knockout to them. She's like, she's a knockout. Enough to threaten their relationship. She's a knockout. Cole is like, I hated this. I hated this.
There was another girl out of the 5 that I thought like, wow, that's more my type. But I proposed to a girl named Zenab. Do you think I thought Zenab looked like the girls I dated in the past that were named like Lily? No!
I got so mad because he said her name like it was derogatory. He said her name like it was a slur. Zenab. So just another reason to hate Cole. But I'm proud of Zenab. She holds her own. She's like, no, me and Matt are on the receiving end of things that you did. Things that you said. Do not take away from that. These are because of things that you said. And he's like, fine, go marry Matt then. Since you're on his team, we can switch fiancés. Matt and Cole talk it out now. And Cole reiterates that, no, Colleen was not flirting with me. No, she was not overstepping at all. She says she has no reservations about you. She loves you. And Matt admits, he was like, she may have told me that, but I was so triggered I couldn't even hear it. And he was like, okay, well, rest assured, like, stop. Nancy and Bartiz go back to the apartment and he is obviously upset about her conversation with Andrew. Again, funny. You throw me away, but now you're mad that someone would consider picking me up then. And she was like, we weren't flirting or anything, but I was just I was having a serious conversation with him and telling him that it hurts. It hurts that you don't love me for who I am and I love you for who you are, but you don't love me because I'm not the physical type that you would go for. And he's like, I do love you, but I'm not gonna act like looks don't matter. Which again, why the hell are you on Love is Blind? Why are you on the show? That's a betrayal to me. Because again, you're here to find somebody that's not based off of your look criteria. Go and find your type. Continue to date your type. See how that goes for you because it's gotten you nowhere. That's why you're here. And then basically his whole explanation of why he's been like dismissive of her is, I'm synthesizing this. He says a lot of words to simply just say, look, we have problems with like your ex being involved in your properties and you being pro-abortion. And if you were hotter, I'd be able to ignore that. But the episode finally ends with Matt calling Bartiz. He's on the phone and he is freaking out because Colleen was supposed to meet him back at the apartment and instead decided to go out to the club. Now, they don't specify this, but I'm sure she was out with other castmates and probably the production crew or whatever. But he is like, she's out there. Where the fuck is she? Like, it's a Wednesday. Why are you out at the club? I don't want a woman who's gonna be out in the club at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. Like, what the? He is losing his mind. And I'm like, no. I wouldn't be able to do this. Y'all got you. I have so little patience. The moment you raise I will say this. I've dated some shitty men. None of them have raised their voice at me though. We're not doing that. You can get the fuck out. Absolutely. I'm not raising my voice. I'm a very 0 to 100 type of bitch. I either talk like this or I stab you. And I don't want a case. So we're either going to have this conversation or you're going to get the fuck out of my house. He's losing his mind. Meanwhile, Bartiz is trash. He's like trying to like wind him down and he's like, look, you've been looking for a problem this entire time. You have it so good. That girl loves you and you're attracted to her. I would kill to be in your spot, man. I would kill to be with a person you connect with so much emotionally and you find them attractive. No, I would have to leave. There's no way in hell. You're not gonna invalidate me and embarrass me everywhere you go just talking about how much you aren't interested in me. Then don't be with me, nigga. But he's like, I wish I was in your position right now. The episode ends there, basically. Matt freaking out about Colleen going to the club without telling him, I guess. That's it. It's a lot, I know. I still recommend watching it. There's still 4 more episodes left, and they're going to release the next episodes next Wednesday for, I think, the next 3 episodes next Wednesday, and then the week after that is going to be the reunion. So what I plan to do is in 2 weeks do the follow-up for the next 4 episodes. Let me know. If you didn't even like this video, then I won't do a follow-up on it. But if you end up liking this video, then let me know if I should do a part 2. This season is chaos, baby, and confirmation, affirmation that being single might be meant for me, because absolutely not. I'll be back with a bad movie next week. Did you guys know that Passionflix came out with the second part of that Supernatural movie they came out with a year or 2 ago that I did a video on? And I loved it because the wigs were wiggalicious and they came back even wiggleful this time as well. I'll be back with that one next week, most likely. So if you like this video, feel free to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. Tell me how you feel about this season. I want to know. I want to hear all the opinions, the juicy tidbits. I'm ready. And I will see you guys next time.